Hi folks, I'm Stephen Cronin. Welcome to another watercolour demonstration. Now today I've got an early morning riverbank scene with our little fisherman there trying his luck in the water. So let me show you the colours I've used for this one. So on the palette I used ultramarine, lemon yellow, Payne's grey, alizarin crimson, raw sienna, burnt umber and light red. The brushes, most of it done with a large hake brush. Used the little hake brush just to dry brush a few leaves on there. I think I only used that flat just to take some paint off, and then other than that it was I used the sword liner brush and a couple of riggers, a number 3 and a size 0. So kicking it off as always with the bit of clean water. A lot of people like to pre-stretch their paper before they start it, but I just do it as I go along, really. And then after a couple of minutes, I just pull it tight and just refix it. So I thought I'll start off with some lighter colours. Really, I got a slightly dirty yellow there. It had a bit of blue in it, which is why it turned out slightly greener than I was hoping, but. Also use a bit of light red. I think there's a bit of alizarin crimson in there as well. And I'm basically looking for sort of early morning sunrisey, bright yellowy sky type of feel to the thing. I was tempted to go in the left there with the red, which is sometimes I really do tend to overdo it too much all the time. It's so hard to, when you've got colour on your brush, just to stop and just keep that variation. You can see sort of in the sky you've got predominantly yellow on the left, red on the right, and just leave it like that. So I've brushed all those into the water as well, so you've got some sort of instant reflections. Then I've put plenty of blue on. I haven't bothered cleaning the brush, but plenty of blue. And these are now the sort of distant, it's like a distant hill and trees and the sort of distant like horizon line. Also popping in a few trees on the left hand side, just using the corner. So just use it sort of flat against the paper when I want to do the hills, but when I want to do trees and those sorts of things, I sort of just slant it a little bit and just use the corner of the brush. So I've got all that nice colour on the paper now, and what I want to do is preserve it before I go any further, ready for the next layer or wash to go over the top of it. So once it's dry, that'll sort of fix the paint in place then, so I can put another layer over the top and start creating depth and building it all up. So the paper stretched a little bit, so I'm just refixing it on the right hand side with these bulldog clips that I use. And now, because the paper's dry now, I just want to re-wet it, just so subsequent colours and washes go on and just blend together a little bit. I will be getting a little bit of paint and water coming down the paper, but I don't worry about it too much. As long as it's not like sort of Niagara Falls, then it sort of helps sort of loosen everything up. So you can see I'm adding a bit more yellow and the reds. Brushing them right down over those trees. And then back into the blue, just building up the distant stuff now, those distant trees. A little bit of colour in the water as well, reflecting some of that blue. And I was going to have like a sun up in the sky, but I didn't put the colours on strong enough to make it stand out as well. I used a dirty tissue, which left a bit of a mark, so I just used that little flat brush there just to clean it off a little bit. Incidentally, just a big thank you to all the patrons. The support is very much appreciated as always. You can become a patron yourself if you wish and get access to lots of more videos and posts. There's an article, I wrote an article on there today. I think it was entitled something, what makes you shout does anything make you shout? And I just wrote a short piece about how all trees feature in all my videos. The one thing that makes me shout about landscape painting is the fact that the landscapes are slowly disappearing. I saw there was a stat the other day that 98% of all ancient UK woodland has disappeared. That's all trees since the 1600s in England and Wales. Only 2% of them remain, which I thought was absolutely unbelievable. And the fact that I paint most trees in my landscapes, it's a real shame. I know they're replanting a lot of them, but it takes an age to reach the sort of huge mature levels of these ancient trees. So that's just an article I wrote today on Patreon. You'll be able to see loads of others. That's part of the Deep Thinking series. There's 40 questions I'm trying to answer, and I'd like to get your thoughts as well on this. So join me over patreon.com/Stephen Crone if you want to join in the conversation. Back with this one, I've been using the sword liner now to paint all these tree trunks. So these will be the most distant ones, because I painted when they were wet. They'll fade off into the distance, and I'll paint some stronger ones in front of it to help create that sense of depth. It's a sort of three-dimensional look to the painting. So I'm now back to the hake. I want to get some darks in now. These will be the darks on under the trees, on the riverbanks, just by the water's edge now. So I'm mixing sort of reds and blues and browns together, just a general dark mix, strengthening that riverbank there on the left hand side, pulling down a bit of colour as well as I go along, and then switching over to the right hand side. Same thing, same principle. So if you can imagine, there's like two banks of land with a water that runs between the two, and then off right into the distance where you can see that tree there, right, well that sort of bluey sense, lots of trees right in the middle, right way back to the sword liner, and it's just a general dark mix, same mix again pretty much. And these trees are going on stronger now, and you can see how it's starting to look more three-dimensional with these stronger trees contrasting against the lighter ones I put in earlier that have faded away. Very light in tone, where these are a bit darker. But then as I'm putting the trees in on the top, I'm remembering to just brush them in below as well, just putting the reflections in at the same time so I don't forget to do them later. I know some people prefer to do their reflections afterwards, but I just do them at the same time. It's so much easier. You've already got the colour on your brush, it just seems logical to paint them at the same time. I think some people even tip it upside. I remember watching a Frank Clark, God rest his soul, video years ago where he actually did all the trees and whatnot, and just turned the painting upside down and painted them again, did it that way. All perfectly valid methods, each to our own really. Talking of Frank Clark, I noticed he died, I think it was just after Christmas. Such a shame. I'd say him, Ron Ranson and Bob Ross were the sort of three main TV artists that influenced my personal style more than anyone else. So I think Frank was the last of the three. Now they've all passed on, unfortunately. So now I've switched to the card now, and can't resist putting in a few rocks. These are just like waterline. I mean, I don't normally do this, so it's a bit of an experiment really. I have done this sort of thing in the past, putting in ripples, but I've used like a sharp-edged hake or a flat brush, and just took the paint off with a dry brush. But I thought just try it with a card, just see what sort of effects I can get, and it doesn't look too bad. So I wanted to dry brush a few leaves onto a couple of the trees there on the left hand side. So I thought I could just see the small hake on my tray. I thought, oh, why not use that? Doesn't get much of a look in the small hake. I did some 7x5 inch paintings before Christmas. And it sort of came into its own then. Rarely use it when I'm doing like 15 by 11 inch paintings, which I'd say is my sort of staple size. But recently I've tried to use more of a sort of bigger variety of brushes, because each brush offers a different type of effect, and I'm trying to get as many different sort of effects as I can get. Lots of diversity I think is key. So I've brushed those banks in dark now. Now I'm thinking, let's scrape a few rocks in. I mean, when there's a dark colour on the paper, it just seems like the perfect opportunity. And then the way you scrape them in, it sort of almost looks like the light then, the sunlight is catching the edge. One edge you get in light where you've scraped, and the others you get sort of automatic shadows on the other side. So I thought, well, let's do the same on the left, but I've got to keep it sort of, I don't want to overdo it with all the rocks, so I've just done the odd one on the left hand side. So coming right down into the foreground now, and I'm keeping with the hake, the small hake, and I just want some foreground reeds now and grasses, just to give the viewer, just imagine where you just stood now opposite this lake scene, peering out towards the sun, some of the silhouetted trees and bushes, just somewhere to stand. So I've sort of blocked in the main bit of banks there, and I'm just using the sword liner again with the dark mix just to suggest all the grasses and reeds and things growing just by our feet as we're looking out over the water's edge. So a lot of the banks here are sort of pretty light in tone, so it just seems like the perfect opportunity there to paint some darker trees, and this will again just continuously helping with that sort of three-dimensional look and creating depth. So I'll just use a sort of my sort of go-to ultramarine burnt umber mix, which is pretty dark, and again just brushing up the trunks and twigs and branches, just painting them as loosely as I can, remembering to put the reflections down at the same time so I don't forget those. But just a light touch, because I only want a narrow stroke. If you press down on the brush you get a much broader stroke, but because they're sort of fairly distant trees, I don't want the branches and trunks too thick. I want to keep them fairly thin, so just a light touch with the sword liner, and then I'm just going in again, just using the end of the brush just to create a few dark tones here and there, just to contrast with all the lighter tones in the painting, especially those there, you know, right in the middle where it's almost, you can see the white of the paper, just to suggest the sunlight coming from behind those trees reflecting off the water. So these dark marks will just contrast with all of those. So you just want a complete range, as much as you can get, tonal range, from the darkest darks to the lightest lights, and all the variations in between. So I think that's most of the scene in there, and I'm starting to think about what can I use as a focal point now. And I'm thinking, I know it always works well as a focal point in these types of things. Little fisherman. So I've got out I wanted to keep them quite small, so I've just got a size 0 rigger. I didn't bother drying the painting, so I'm just watching my hand there over those bushes so I don't smudge anything. Just using a dark mix, burnt umber ultramarine, and just doing a little fisherman just sat on the banks of the water. And then just the lightest touch just to paint the rod coming out. I'm just on a very, very, very thin line. And then just a hint of a reflection below. It doesn't have to be perfect, just a hint, just the idea that there's something there in the water reflecting what's above it. So that's our sort of main focal point in. Always nice to have a few little birds there up flying over the trees and over the water. So I thought I'll pop half a dozen of these in just over there. Add a bit of life to the scene. And with that, with the birds, pretty much that's about it really. So just sign this, just sign in the corner, and that's that one done. I hope you enjoy that. It was quite an enjoyable one to paint, that was. So let's have a closer look at it. The sky, I was going to put some blue in, but then I quite liked the look of the way the yellow and the reds were working together, so I thought I'll leave it at that sort of early morning look to it. Reflected it in the water as well. Always do it at the same time. It's a lot easier than doing it afterwards, where you've got to replicate the exact colour. Then you can see the background, these sort of blue trees and bushes right in the background. So they're creating the depth, and then sort of bringing it forward as the tone gets stronger and darker. You can see the variation then in the depth. That gives it that sort of three-dimensional look. Darker ones and then the fainter ones behind. And then as I was doing, I was just constantly putting the reflections in as well as I was going along, so I didn't forget to do anything. A little bit of dry brushwork there, it's a bit of sort of autumn foliage. All the yellows and reds of the sort of dying leaves on the trees. A lot of bare branches as well. I almost prefer the bare branch, sort of bleak, wintry type of look. And you can see, couldn't resist scraping some rocks into those darks. Even if there's never any rocks in the reference material, I always like to just bang them in anyway. I just think it adds a little bit more detail. Same on the left hand side. Tried to be as subtle as I could. It's so easy to overdo it with the rocks. But then I've also used the card just to sort of scrape in a few sort of water lines as well, just give it that ripply sort of look. Again, tried to enhance the depth with a few foreground reeds. Just imagine you just stood on this near bank here, looking out across the water, our little fisherman there. Just casting, trying his luck with the bait. And then just a few little birds flying overhead. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks as always for your support, especially all the patrons over at patreon.com/Stephen Cronin. Do join me over there if you get the opportunity. You'll be very most welcome. So until next time, keep practicing. If you've got any questions, please ask, and I'll see you again soon.